There it is. Awesome. All right, so we are now live. As no mic. Please. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, everyone. As you notice, the food is ready to go. We have Dan here with 2GIG. He is going to have a presentation for us. So feel free to keep mingling, getting food, walking around. We're just going to present. And if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to let us know. But I'll hand it off to Dan.
All right. Hey, everybody. A little bit of a louder guy, so hopefully you shouldn't have any issues hearing me. Please continue to get your food, anything like that. I'll just continue to go through my presentation as y'all grub away. Quick thanks to Nelly's and the team for hosting this event. Appreciate you for having us come out. And for any of our dealer partners and customers, my 2GIG booth is over here off to the side. So after the presentation, if you do have any questions or anything like that, feel free to come and see me. So to get kicked off, you can see our logo here is NICE. So for anybody that is not familiar, we previously were Nortec Control. We were acquired, so to speak. We actually previously were owned by a bank named Melrose. They sold us off and we were acquired by an Italian manufacturing company that's called NICE. So hence the NICE logo there. The puns are infinite. We've got nice people, nice equipment, real nice products. So that's never going to stop. So forgive me, you guys, but just at least wanted to kind of give you a short explanation as to how we kind of came to be and where we are at today. Does it not want to move forward now? I don't know why. Okay, oh, there it goes. Sorry about that. So for the NICE company that actually acquired us, it's an Italian manufacturing company. So we kind of overnight turned into a global company. So we have two separate markets that in no way compete with one another. And that was kind of what the positive acquirement of our company was actually supposed to do, is we took an Italian manufacturing company that was only based in Europe and were able to segue to a North American market. What they essentially saw was we had engineers and products that they felt like they could utilize in their market, and vice versa. They saw products and engineers in their market that they think could segue over to our market. So it was actually kind of a really, really positive move for us, and that we have a lot of support and movement behind the 2GIG brand that I think in the upcoming years, you guys are really going to start to see how that comes to fruition. So the primary intrusion panel that we really like to lead with is our 2GIG Edge. So that's the latest and greatest, so to speak, that we have out there in our ecosystem. And it really kind of just tries to show how everything ties in together with that intrusion panel itself. The standard that we have is 345 megahertz. So for anybody that's not familiar, 2GIG stands for two guys in a garage. And it was actually started from two engineers that used to work at Honeywell. And they started to kind of see the writing on the wall that the industry was moving towards wireless solution, Wi-Fi connectivity, Z-Wave connectivity. Honeywell did not agree with them, so they decided to kick off on their own and produce 2GIG. And so that's kind of where we are today. But a lot of the sensors and everything that we use is actually backwards compatible, and that's where you get that 345 megahertz. And then we also do have compatibility with 900. And then our Z-Wave devices are as well. Basically, anything that's not proprietary that's Z-Wave compatible will be able to sync up with our systems. And then as you can see there, the cellular, Wi-Fi, and broadband router connectivity. Cellular and Wi-Fi is really just to create that dual redundancy. So for anybody that is in the alarm intrusion space, most of you probably know who alarm.com is. They're kind of the middleman, so to speak, that's going to create that connection path between your end user, the customer, and the alarm monitoring response center, as well as your intrusion panel. So you've got your intrusion panel up front. You've got that cellular and Wi-Fi or broadband communication path. It's going to link together with alarm.com, and then that's kind of the information that gets segued to your end user as well as that alarm monitoring response center. However, those can tie into not only your computer, your smartphone, but then even things like Alexa, Google Home. So you can actually even create commands with that. And you can say, hey, Alexa, tell alarm.com to, turn the thermostat down to 71 degrees, things like that. So if you're not near your phone or you don't have access to anything at that moment, you can actually do voice commands in that way. So we won't dive into this too much. It's just kind of really trying to show that alarm.com is that middleman for this product, and for our early introduction of the GC2 panel as well. And like I said, alarm.com is that middleman that's going to allow that end user, that customer, to be able to manage that alarm system, whether it be while they're in the home or on the go, whether it be arming, disarming, running scenes, anything like that. So we like to say that we have flexible opportunities because we have two intrusion panels that we lead with. We have the GC2, which is what you see there on the left, and then the 2 gig Edge, which is what you see on the right. And really the difference between the two is the Edge is trying to bring a lot of those mobile functions and capabilities that you get on the go and allowing you to actually have access to that on the alarm panel itself. So if you do have a little bit more of a robust system for one of your customers where they've got Z-Wave door locks, Z-Wave thermostats, Z-Wave garage door opener, maybe alarm.com cameras, or, I noticed Uniview here, Dawa, there's a lot of different manufacturers. If they have on-VIF capabilities, I think even Nelly's has on-VIF, they can even tie into that Edge panel as well. So you're kind of taking all of those smart features and actually putting it on the panel. So right there on the panel, I can answer a video doorbell and have two-way communication. I can manage my smart locks, my thermostat, garage door opener. Any of those smart feature functions can actually be managed on the panel itself versus our GC2. You get your basic arming and disarming and trouble, and then the alarm.com app is where you're able to get the majority of those functionality pieces. So we're just going to go into a little bit of the full 2 gig product line that we have, really mainly here on the intrusion side. So we'll start with our 345. As you can see there on the left, we have our encrypted. So we have encrypted and non-encrypted series sensors for everything. So for anyone that's not familiar, your encrypted line series is really just, it's more so kind of put in place to help ensure that you're not getting takeover systems. So if somebody were to come in behind you with the competitor's product, they're not able to just do a panel swap and take over all of your existing sensors. They would essentially have to replace the entire system. So it's more of a cost issue for them doing a takeover versus just a simple panel swap. But you'll see there the encrypted flood and temperature sensor. A lot of times you'll see that with restaurants where they want to maybe access to a cooler or a freezer, something like that. But next to that, we have our water leak detector. It's honestly smaller than even a hockey puck. And the real cool thing about that is you get instant notification when there's water that comes into contact with the prongs. So on the top there, you kind of see a little bit of an indentation. There's a metal prong there, and then there's 3 prongs that are underneath that. So a lot of our customers will drop that in maybe the tray of a hot water heater, or putting it in a cabinet where they've had a consistency with a sink linking, maybe behind a fridge if you've got a water line that maybe has dripped in the past. So it's really kind of a nice, and there's no power source to it, so you can at any point in time pick it and move it to a different portion of the house. So it's really nice to be able to get that instant notification if you have a water detector leak. The other cool thing is one of our technicians, he's potty training one of his young kids, so he likes to drop it behind his toilet, and he gets a notification. He knows that his kid missed, so he gets to hand him a box of wet wipes and send him up to do some cleanup work. But the cool thing is for your end user, it's a really, really easy thing to add on to your current intrusion system. It's a cheap product. Like I said, very, very easy add-on to be able to throw on top for the customer. And at any point in time, they can take that and move it around, relocate it to a different portion of the house as they see fit. And then next to that, you'll see our outdoor rated wireless contact. So a lot of times that's good for over 300 feet of range. And so where a lot of our customers like to use that is maybe if you're working with a customer that has a detached garage that they want to make sure that they can still know if that door is opening or closing, or if somebody doesn't want to have a video doorbell, but they have maybe an exterior gate that goes around their front yard and they want to know if somebody's actually entering their property. So it's fully weather rated, so it can get rained on, snowed on, here in Oklahoma, we like to experience some heat and humidity, so you're not going to have any issues with that. So like I said, it's got a significantly longer range than a standard door and window contact. But the cool thing is when you start to, add in external shops, gates, entry points that aren't actually specifically tied on the house itself, I think it's a really, really cool product that a lot of our customers really just don't realize that we have. So beyond that, you have our standard encrypted sensors and our standard series sensors there that you'll see on the right. Our door and window contact. Next to that, you'll see a recessed door contact. So a lot of times you'll see that with builders if they don't want to physically have that window contact or that door contact that's sticking out on top of the door. There's always that recessed contact that you can drill into the door and actually kind of hide it. It's a little bit, aesthetically pleasing for some of our builders. We've got our motion detector. We've got a glass break detector, panic button and a key fob, a firefight 2 gig repeater. We have our smokes. We have CO detectors as well. But the cool thing is you'll see that firefight pendant that's there. For any of your customers where you're doing an intrusion system and they have an existing hardwired smoke system, but they still want to try to find a way to tie that into their intrusion system, that firefight is a small pendant that you would hang next to an existing smoke. And once that smoke detector goes off, it echoes to that firefight, and that's actually how you'll be able to receive a notification on your alarm system. So even if you're not at the home, you'll still be able to receive a notification that there's been an issue or that there's potentially a fire at the house, even if you're not there. Obviously, as we know, the primary concern for those fire detection devices, if you're in the home, make sure you get out and that you're not the subject to possibly injury or anything worse, right? Firefight can actually help make sure that you have that notification when you're away from the home. So anything that I mentioned, as long as it's not proprietary, anything that has Z-Wave capabilities is going to be able to sync into our 2 gig security system. However, we do have a line of of Z-Wave devices that we actually manufacture and create as well. So as you'll see there on the top left, we have our Z-Wave garage door opener. I never thought that was going to be something that I really needed to have on my system until now I have it. And goodness gracious, I can't tell you how many times I've left the house and left the garage door open. So that is an absolutely wonderful thing to have, especially if you're traveling out of town. Just helps put you at ease of mind to actually know that you did remember to close that garage door. We have our own Z-Wave smart thermostats as well. Again, it's really, really nice for your customers to be able to manage their home when they're away from the house. So setting up schedules, managing that thermostat when they're on the go, it's a really nice thing to make sure that us as husbands will never, of course, forget to turn the thermostats up or down. That's one of the hot keys on ours. But we've got kids at home and they like to just run rampant with those things. So having something that you can manage on the go, I think, is a really nice add to the system. And then you'll see there are Z-Wave light switches and lamp modules as well. So that can go in, in place of, for example, tied in mine to my front porch lights, lamp modules. So, anyone that wants to manage a lamp or Christmas trees at Christmas time, again, it's just a really, really cool opportunity for you to actually be able to not only do your security system, but manage the lights on the go, which if you're away from the house, I think it's a really neat feature to have where you're not at the house. Maybe if somebody's been kind of trying to watch that property for your customer, it lets them know, hey, you can always turn those lights on and off. You can have them set up on a schedule every single night at 10 o'clock. That lamp comes on at 11:45. It turns off. Helps maybe kind of give that illusion that there's somebody at the house, even if there's not, because you're able to manage a lot of those features and functions when you're not at the home. So we'll dive into a little bit of the feature and function set specifically of the Edge panel. So when it was first introduced in 2021, it did win a plethora of awards for the Security Panel of the Year. Just a couple of them are listed right there. But again, here we are in 2023, so we don't want to dwell too much on the past. But the cool thing is it's easy to use. The installing and programming for anybody that's in the intrusion space, if they've ever installed our legacy panel, the GC2, and you've upgraded to the Edge, you can confirm how significantly easier it is to get that panel programmed and installed. And then it's got some advanced technologies, a little bit more private and secure as well, which we'll go into some of those details. So the cool thing is up front is industry first facial recognition, arming and disarming. So on the front face of that panel, there's going to be a small camera where you actually get facial recognition, arming and disarming. Honestly, guys, that is not for all of your customers, but I like to kind of think of real world case scenarios. Maybe an elderly woman is trying to come into the home carrying groceries, not trying to find their phone, having difficulty getting their arms up, can go right in front of that camera, stare at it, scan their face, disarms the system just like that. Or if you've got a young kid at home and he wants to give away his passcode to all of his buddies and his friends, which one of our techs loves to do, his kid likes to do. So he set him up on facial recognition. So now when his kid comes home, walks in the door, scans his face, disarms the system, and now the little neighbor's kid doesn't know all the access codes to break into their house when they're not there. So again, it's not really built for every single customer, but it's a nice, cool feature or function to have depending on what type of end user you're actually working with and what type of system that they're trying to gain access to. One of the cool things is you can enroll up to 10 faces on that. So if you do have a large group of family members, or, you know, again, if it's for your mother and you're going to be going over to the house as well, maybe watching the dogs if you're not there, you can enroll multiple users in there to still be able to disarm that system. And then it is anti-spoofing. So even if I got the clearest picture of our guy over here, Tyler from Nelly's, and I mean crystal clear picture of him, and I held it up in front of his alarm panel, it's actually going to be able to recognize that it's not Tyler sitting there and that it's a picture, and it will not disarm that system. So one of the cool things about it, as I mentioned, it's really, really easy to use. But what I like about it is you can actually set up 8 different remote keypads to that primary. So if you end up in a situation where it's maybe small commercial, or you've got an individual that just kind of has multiple entry points into their home, or you run into that situation where they've got a detached garage or shop, you can install up to 8 remote keypads with it. One of the other cool things, however, is you can actually partition from the primary keypad up to 4 different zones. So even if you had a detached garage or a detached shop that was apart from the partition that into a separate zone, or a mother-in-law quarters in the back of the house, anything like that. So it kind of allows you a little bit more creativity when it comes to setting up that system just from the primary panel itself. And then lastly, one of the cool things that you get is Bluetooth arm and disarm. So for anyone that's not familiar, it's, you know, really, really convenient if you tie in that Bluetooth system to where when you pull up into that house, your Bluetooth on your phone immediately reads and tags to that system, and it disarms it. So you don't have to mess with pulling out your phone. You don't even have to do the camera disarm or even go in there and physically disarm with the code itself. You kind of have that option to just kind of have that nice ease of disarm with that Bluetooth. And then on the actual edge panel itself, you can pull live camera feeds. So whether it's alarm.com cameras or any of the cameras manufacturers that are here today, or the Nelly's cameras, they all have on-VIF capabilities. Those will all tie into the Edge alarm system so that you would be able to actually pull up those live camera feeds on our panel itself. So the panel is a wireless system. You can always do a conversion and take over hardwired systems. We do have a take switch for that. But the panel itself is just built primarily as a wireless solution. It does come with 2 hardwired zone inputs, has a built-in glass break detection. It's got, like I said, it's got the Legacy series that can tie into it. So our standard sensors or our E-series sensors can all work with the system. As I mentioned, you can do 4 partitions on the primary panel and tie up to 8 remote keypads to it. And then the intuitive programming options, what's really neat about that is for anybody that's ever run into a situation where for whatever reason you've pulled a panel out of the box and it's already got a low power supply, if you're midway through programming that panel and something happens and that panel dies on you, power goes out, you know, storm, anything like that, it actually saves where you are in that programming process. So if you've got 99% of the sensors programmed in there, it all stays stored in there so that once you restart everything, you're basically already at 99% completion. You don't have to start all the way over. So from anybody that's ever run into that situation, you'll probably understand how nice that is to have. One of the other cool things that you can do is on the top right where you see that 2 gig logo, sorry, it's not there on the image, but on the primary panel, you've got the 2 gig logo there. You can always replace that and put your logo on there, a business logo. It even has a screensaver mode, essentially, that after the panel is dormant for a certain period of time, it'll start scrolling pictures. There's always the default landscape ones that are on there, but you can always load, you know, your business logos on there, or for your customers, if they want to put customer pictures or family pictures. I like to kind of think about if you're doing a project for maybe a commercial business, think about like a Subway that's in a strip mall. have them go to each one of those businesses and have them pull up a photo of their business, have them load it onto that panel and pay them a couple bucks a month just to basically advertise their business on his alarm panel at the front of the store. Good opportunity for them to maybe pay off some of that monthly monitoring bill, and they're also advertising for the other businesses that are on there. But again, those scrolling pictures and ability to kind of customize it yourself just gives that customer or that end user a little bit more, breadth to kind of create that system and customize it to what they want. So the remote keypad is really, really nice in that we tried to keep that same aesthetic from the primary keypad to that secondary keypad. So you're not going to have it's not going to be smaller, different screen size, anything. I mean, it is virtually identical from the primary to the secondary so that that customer has that same aesthetic all the way through the home. The only really difference between the primary and the secondary is that secondary panel is 100% a Wi-Fi panel, okay? So when it comes to setting up that secondary keypad for your end users or your customers, just make sure that they do have suitable Wi-Fi strength or that they've got a strong mesh network in place. And then that way you're not going to run into possibilities where maybe it's falling offline consistently. Outside of that, though, it's a fantastic product to be able to tie in and keep that clean look throughout. Customers like to have something in their primary bedroom. You have an opportunity for them there. The other cool thing is similar to the primary keypad, this also has a front-facing camera that you can do arming and disarming, but you can even tie those the two panels together to where if you want to have two-way communication like an intercom system. So the secondary keypad is in a loft area where maybe your kids play. You could key in, hey, dinner's ready, come downstairs. And then you can even do camera-to-camera view as well. So when I pull up the live camera view, I can see that secondary keypad's internal camera and vice versa. So when you tell them to come downstairs and they still haven't moved, you can even pull up the camera and see that they're still sitting right there on their butt and haven't come downstairs. So it's kind of a neat thing in my opinion. And again, that two-way communication does trail forward to that video doorbell as well. So if you do have a video doorbell tied to the system as well, not only would you be able to answer that, you'd still be able to have that two-way communication from the primary or that secondary keypad. So I've already kind of touched on some of these things in that Z-Wave compatibility, as long as it's not proprietary, it's going to be able to tie into the system. But one of the cool things is, I briefly touched on it, but these all tie into Alexa, Google Home, Siri, and there's even geofencing as well tied to it. So basically geofencing is once you enter or exit an area, you create a scene or a command. So you could set up geofencing so that once you leave the house, if you've left a certain area, it knows you haven't armed the system, it's going to automatically arm it for you, right? And then the other cool thing is you can tell Alexa or Google Home, any of these things, to actually manage your system through voice commands. So I could tell Alexa, hey, Alexa, tell alarm.com to turn my thermostat down to 72 degrees. Or hey, Alexa, tell alarm.com to run the good night scene. And my good night scene arms the system, turns the thermostat down, locks the doors, closes the garage. So you can even have those voice commands as well, so you don't have to get up and find your phone or get up and go interact with the panel to be able to actually manage some of those features that you want to have access to on the system. So when we talk about advanced technology, the real core behind that, as you can see, is we put a 1.64 gigahertz processor inside of that panel. Essentially, we tried to give it a really big brain because we knew that as time went on, we wanted to find new things and push updates to that panel. We wanted to make sure that it had the power to be able to handle everything as we continued to provide updates. So for example, since the iteration of this panel has been created, we've had 2 firmware updates that we've pushed out. One being the capability for that secondary panel to have two-way communication. Again, all the features were there, or the software was there. I'm sorry, the hardware was there. We just needed the software to actually tell it what to do. And so that's really kind of the point behind that big brain, is as we continue to update that panel and find features and functions that we want to have access to, it's going to be able to manage and handle that, okay? Anybody that's looked at it, again, the panel's over there, feel free to come talk to me or take a look at it. It's got very, very clear resolution and picture. It's got that dual communication path for that redundancy between cellular and Wi-Fi. And then, as I mentioned, you can even use that secondary keypad for Wi-Fi access, but the primary panel itself has its own Wi-Fi access point as well. So I think that's a really, really cool feature to tie in that if the customer's got poor Wi-Fi solution, but they want that secondary keypad, you can literally set up the primary as a Wi-Fi access point and even tie in the secondary to that, okay? So it's private and secure. The best example that I have for this is my brother, who is an over-the-top conspiracy theorist. I like to give him crap about it whenever I can. But he is one of those like, hey, if I have your panel and I have facial recognition, what happens if somebody hacks my system and everything's stored in the cloud? Well, now they've got my access codes and they've got my pictures. It's hard to explain to him that nobody cares enough about him to hack anything that he has at his house. But again, for your customers that are like my brother, everything is stored internally on the panel. There is no cloud computing. There is no cloud storage. So nobody's going to be able to, quote unquote, digitally hack into your system to gain access to that information. Okay. And then the other thing for my, using my brother as an example, if you do have any of those customers who are like, hey, that's a cool idea, having a camera on the panel, but I don't like the idea of having cameras inside of my home. We've probably all run across at least one of those customers before. You do have the ability to essentially turn off those built-in cameras so that you're taking away that ability to view those in-view cameras, and then also for that facial recognition arming and disarming. But again, if that's something that your customer doesn't want to have access to, or it makes them uncomfortable, that can always be removed. So don't need to go too much into it. It's really just trying to show the point that on-site storage versus cloud storage, where everything is basically accessible at any point in time. So as I mentioned, we have had a couple of firmware updates that we've pushed out since the panel was introduced. A couple of the key ones where I think one of the gentlemen at some point asked me, I think it was you guys, about a siren and the how loud it was. And so one of the things that we did was we've added severe weather alert updates. So from the panel itself, tornado warnings, things like that, you'll actually get an alert on the panel. We've improved Z-Wave enhancement. So for anybody that's adding, Z-Wave door locks or anything like that, just the connectivity between those has been improved, increasing the siren volume, connectivity with remote keypads, even adding an option for no entry delay on the home screen versus just arm stay away. And then for anybody that is not aware, you can push any of these updates to the panel via over-the-air through alarm.com or in person with a USB stick on the top of the panel. You'll see a little rubber tab that you pull it back, and there's a USB port. So you can literally just plug in a thumb drive, shoot the update right there to the panel. It takes no more than a couple minutes. So I say that as if you've got one in your home and it needs to be updated, it's really easy to just pop a thumb drive in there. But for any of your customers that have already been sitting there with the panel that it's in the field, and maybe they are having an issue with the siren not being loud enough or having issues connecting to that Z-Wave door lock, you can always push an update to them over the air and update the firmware that way, and it should clean up a lot of those problems that they're having if it's related to some of these fixes. So that's really all I had for you guys today. Thank you for your time. Before I at least take off, and again, you can find me over here. Is there any other questions or concerns from anybody? Awesome. Thanks for your time, guys. I'm Dan Emmons with 2GIG.